Hey, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, SBC 209. I am once again your interpersonal communications instructor, Vic McInnes, coming to you live on video from the lovely sun-drenched campus of Aiken Technical College here in the bustling, thriving metropolis of Graniteville, South Carolina. Remember, Aiken Technical College, your #1 choice for higher education in Aiken County. One thing real quick that I need to get out of the way. I am in my classroom on campus in the 700 building that looks out over on a parking lot #1. There's an event going on down in the Commons, and there will be people streaming back and forth. You'll be able to probably see the reflection of the people walking back and forth. A lot of times when I'm giving a lecture on tape, a lot of people see somebody standing in an empty room giving a public speech, and they stop and look at, why is that guy being so weird? So I may well be waving at people as they go by. If they stop and look, I always do the courtesy of waving back so I'm not, being really rude to them. Okay, we are up to chapter 9. Actually, we're up to chapter 9, 10, and 11, I think, public speaking. As I have progressively gone along with this course in this textbook, the amount of time I spend on these 3 chapters has shrunk considerably. It was 3 lectures at one point, then it was 2 lectures at one point, then it was a lecture and a half, and then it was a lecture with some stuff stuck on another lecture. I should be able to get through all of this in an hour. If I don't, I will tack it on. We'll try to, if I get close to an hour, we'll find a cutoff point, and I will re-engage with the rest of the lecture later on. But I'm going to give you enough so that you can get on with your discussion boards today, okay? The topic of chapter 9, 10, and 11 is public speaking. This is not a public speaking course. I'm not even sure why this material is in here, but we've got time to cover it, so I'm going to cover it with you. And public speaking is something we are often called to do as part of our jobs. It's something from as formal as like a sales presentation, something as informal as you're asked to come speak to a civic group on behalf of your industry or your company. Something as informal as, hey Bob, you went to that safety course last week. Why don't you tell everybody what you learned real quick? Okay, that is a public speaking event. So what we're going to do is just sort of go over some information on public speaking. We have a great public speaking course here at Aiken Technical College, SBC 205. It is a wonderful course. I get a lot of positive feedback. Here the instructor is a bit of a jerk, but other than that, I would highly recommend everybody take SBC 205. It's a really good course. The adjunct faculty is great from what I hear. Okay, so let's talk about what we do before we actually give the speech, okay? And this is before you even get into it. First thing you have to do is you have to pick a topic to talk about. A lot of times that's going to be given to you, hey, you work for Savannah River, so we would like for you to come talk about nuclear power. Well, a lot of times, even if they give you that much information, that's still awfully broad and you still have to narrow it down. 3 things you always take into consideration when selecting the topic for a speech. First thing, #1, is you. You take the speaker into consideration. What are your experiences? What do you like? What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? Okay? What are you knowledgeable of? Okay? That will be the #1 thing you have to think of because you're the one doing the speech. Now, on occasion, I have been asked to come give a speech. When I ask what people want me to talk about, they tell me, and it's something I know absolutely nothing about. And not only do I know nothing about it, I'm not comfortable talking about it. Not because I talk about just about anything, but if I'm not knowledgeable on it, I'm not going to be comfortable giving that speech, and that's going to come across to the audience. So occasionally I have to say, I can't talk on that. I can talk on this. And they go, we don't want you to talk on that. And I go, well, I'm going to have to graciously decline your invitation. Okay? Second thing you want to take into consideration. And I always spell this word wrong, probably wrong again, but that's the way it is on my lecture notes. The occasion. Why are people getting together? Is it going to be a fun, upbeat, lively evening? Is it going to be honoring somebody who's died? Key question you should always ask, or if it comes up, is there going to be alcohol served? Because that can change the audience over time. I gave a speech one time for a dinner where things got pushed back. The bar was supposed to have been open for about 45 minutes before I spoke. It had been open for almost 2 hours. I changed the speech because I began to realize that the blood alcohol content of the audience was pretty bad. I was at an Air Force formal dinner where a deputy or an assistant secretary of the Air Force, pretty big deal in the Air Force, was the speaker. And the bar opened at 5. The dinner started at 6. The speaker started at about 7:45. So and a lot of people pre-gamed before they got there. So a lot of people in that room had been drinking for 3 hours. And the speaker completely misread the audience because he got up there and started into this 45-minute long policy speech. I mean, this would have been a good opportunity to give a speech about how great the Air Force is. We serve our nation. We protect freedom. We're very proud of all of you. Your mothers love you. Your country loves you. Thank you very much for your service. And then sat down. But this guy was droning on for about 45 minutes when people started heckling an assistant secretary of the Air Force. The wing commander, finally passed him a note saying, you need to sit down. And the guy actually, finally realized what was going on and sat down fairly quickly. He had completely misread the occasion. He had also misread the audience. Who's going to be listening to your speech? What do they care about? Why are they there? We're going to talk about audience analysis next. But really, the 3 things you want to keep in mind just before you even start organizing your speech, before you think about your speech, when you're picking your topic, is the speaker, the occasion, and the audience. And the thing you need to remember about picking your topic is that's the first time as the speaker you get to control what's going to happen that day. You may not get to pick the time, the place, the audience, the occasion. You don't get to pick any of these. But when you use those 3 things, speaker, occasion, audience, to select your topic, you begin to control the environment. You begin to take charge of the event. Okay? So let's talk about audience analysis. Every speech has to be delivered to a specific audience, or it's not gonna be effective. Not gonna mention his name. There is a congressman, a U.S. congressman from the other side of the river. I've mentioned in here, I think, that I used to work for a veterans nonprofit for a while over in Augusta. We had an event for post 9/11 veterans. We invited the congressman. He came in and gave a speech talking about how great Vietnam veterans were. I walked over to his staff member that was there with him and I went, did y'all not tell him that this is for a conference for post 9/11 veterans? And he just sort of rolled his eyes and said, he's got the one veteran speech and that's what he does. I said, well, I mean, it's applicable, but every one of his examples deals with Vietnam era veterans. She's like going, yeah, I know. And we're like, these people aren't 65 years old like Vietnam era veterans. They have a completely different set of problems. He's going like, yeah, I know. He's got the veteran speech he gives though, and that's it. He failed to adapt his speech to his audience, and it was a complete bust. Wasted 45 minutes of everybody's time. Okay? So the first thing you want to ask yourself about the audience is their initial disposition. Their initial disposition. Where are they when you start your speech in relation to your topic? Okay? Now, there's a lot of different ways to find that out, but what we're going to be talking about is an idea called, we're going to call it audience analysis. Audience analysis. Because ideally, you should try to tailor your speech, your message, so that it meets the needs of every individual audience you talk to. Okay? Realistically, that probably won't happen, but that is our goal that we strive for. All right? So we analyze the audience as a whole, or we try to break it down into a few key parts. But let's talk about how we do that. The first would be demographics. Demographics. Demographics is where you statistically break down the audience by measures that you can and statistically analyze. Average age, gender, religion, group membership, education, occupation, residency, household income. Now, does that mean you have to go around and ask every audience member, hey, what's your household income? How much does your family make? No, but if you're addressing someone in Aiken County or an Aiken County group, you can go to the U.S. Census Bureau and find out what the average household income in Aiken County is. That's all easily available. Everything I mentioned, age, gender, religious affiliation, group, maybe not group membership, but education level and occupation are all available from the U.S. government through the Census Bureau. It's all there. Okay? It's very simple to find. So the first way you're going to analyze it is through demographics. Next is going to be something called psychographics. Psychographics. What values, opinions, attitudes, beliefs do the audience members share? Okay? If I'm addressing the Chamber of Commerce and I'm doing psychographic audience analysis, what do they all share? They all believe in business. They're all business people, or at least business adjacent. Sometimes the Chamber of Commerce, usually the Chamber of Commerce, the city government will have a representative. They're not in business, but they're interested and adjacent to conducting business. Aiken Technical College has represented as a member of the Aiken County Chamber of Commerce. Are we a business? No, but we are very important to business in this region, and business in this region is very important to us. Okay, so we're business adjacent. What does the audience's values, beliefs, opinions, attitudes, how does those things impact their notions about your ideas and topics? Okay? So that's psychographic analysis. Then the last thing that we'll talk about is purpose-oriented. Purpose-oriented just goes on the situation. Now, it goes, purpose-oriented asks the question, what about my audience is important to my purpose? Not why, a lot of times when people say purpose-oriented audience analysis, they say, oh, well, what you're asking is why is the audience there? No, that's not it. Purpose-oriented means we go through and we identify the pieces of information that are going to help us achieve our goal. Okay? It's focused on us. All right? Now there is another one that you will see sometimes called situational analysis. And that's kind of a catch-all if none of the other ones sort of give you what you need. Situational analysis is, what about the situation? What about the account? What about where you're at that moment in time is important to achieving your purpose. It's kind of, and I don't spend a whole lot of time on it because it's kind of a catch-all. Whatever else. Okay? But where do we get the data for this? First of all, if you're, say, I'm flying in from New York City to do a speech here, where am I going to find out information about the people of Aiken County? Well, I've already talked about the U.S. Census Bureau. A ton of information there. I can get you more information just about than you can digest from the U.S. Census Bureau in about a minute and a half. Because you can search, if you go to I think it's uscensus.gov, and you can plug in Aiken County, South Carolina, and it will take you to all the information you could ever digest on Aiken County from the last census. Okay? There's mass media. Read the Aiken Standard. The North Augusta Star, is it? Whatever newspaper there is there. Even the Augusta Chronicle. Look at all the TV stations, the radio stations. They have news, and you can click on the local news button and see what's going on locally. You can have conversations with local people. Drives my wife nuts. I talk to everybody. I say I get it honestly from my mother. One time I watched my mother help somebody plan their next vacation, and you're sitting there going like, well, that's very nice of your mother. It was in a grocery store express checkout line, and she met them and started helping them plan their vacation by the time we checked out. And they thought she was wonderful. I was kind of weirded out, but I talk to everybody. If I go to a Denny's, I don't go to a Denny's, but I do occasionally go to the Waffle House. If I go to the Waffle House, I'll talk to the waitress, say, hey, how's everything going? I'll ask her, hey, what's Aiken like? Okay? I mean, I have those talk to the hotel clerk. Any local people you meet can give you information about the audience you're going to be talking to. Okay? There's interviews with local people. I mean, if you're really interested in getting and you have the time to do it, and it's a big enough deal, call the mayor and ask for an appointment. The funny thing is, city like Aiken, city like Augusta, Grovetown, Graniteville, you can get in to see people. They will bring it. Aiken County Commission, you can get in and talk to them. They're politicians. It's what they do for a living. If you've got the time, interview key people in the community. Ministers are always great. They love to talk. They're always a great source of information. People at the library, interview them, talk to them. Okay? If you can, get a focus group together. And this is something you're probably never going to do in your life. I've only done it. I'm kind of in this business, and I've only done it a couple of times. But getting a focus group together is where you get some random people together, a sample, and you ask them their opinion on stuff. Okay? And what you're going to do with all of that is called audience adaptation. You have to choose your evidence, your supporting materials. Your organization may change. The example I give in SBC 205 is, let's say I'm the guy, I'm the project manager for the new wing that we're going to build on the Aiken Regional Medical Center. I don't know that they're doing that, so don't get excited. But I'm the project manager, and I've got to talk to some people. Okay? I've got appointments to talk to three groups in the next week to build support for the construction and the bond issue. First group I'm going to talk to is Aiken Tech nursing students and USC Aiken nursing students. I'm going to talk to the local Chamber of Commerce, and I'm going to be talking to banks in New York. I just got a pop-up on my phone. I didn't hit airplane mode before I started. Okay. Am I going to make difference? If I'm going to give different speeches to each other's groups? Absolutely. To the nursing students, to get their support, you know what I'm going to talk about? How many jobs there's going to be and how they can apply for those jobs, or what the qualifications for those jobs are going to be. To the Chamber of Commerce, the business people in Aiken County, man, we're going to talk about how much money it's going to bring into the local economy. To the bankers in New York that I'm going to go to try to get a loan to build this thing, I'm going to talk about what my cash flow is going to look like and how quickly I'm going to be able to pay back the loans. Okay? So once you do audience analysis, you then do audience adaptation. And you begin to adjust to the audience before you've even started writing your speech. The next thing you need to do is to pick your purpose. There's only three. It's got to be one of three. You can entertain, you can inform, or you can persuade. Entertain, inform, or persuade. Can you do all three? Sure. But you got to do one first. Because if you can't decide on which one is your primary goal, your primary purpose, okay, your specific purpose, then you're not going to get any of them. You're going to it's going to come across as you didn't really know what you were supposed to be doing there. Give you a great example. One of the guys, he won the Mark Twain Award, I think it was last year. The Mark Twain Award for American Humor, Dave Chappelle. Is Dave Chappelle persuasive on the topics he talks about? About race in America? Absolutely. Does he inform people on race in America? He does. But when Dave Chappelle is interviewed and he talks, he understands that if he doesn't entertain, he's not going to have people listening to him. He has to entertain first. Then he can, and in his opinion, he has an obligation, and I respect that, has an obligation to inform and to persuade. But he remembers that as a stand-up comedian, yes, he has an obligation to persuade and to inform, but his primary purpose is to entertain. Can I give a persuasive speech that's also funny? Absolutely. Can I give an informative speech that's persuasive? That's a bit more dangerous, but sure. But you have to pick one. A lot of times when people come to me and say, I want to do an informative speech that's also persuasive, I tell them, do the informative speech, let the persuasion work itself out. Because if you come across as an advocate right off the bat, you're going to push some people away. Let them figure it out. Once you figure out what your general purpose is, you're going to want to come up with a specific purpose. Okay? And a specific purpose, and this is what is missing in so many speeches. You should have a single statement with not a whole lot of conjunctions to say what you're going to accomplish during that speech. It's real simple. Today I'm going to talk to you about the declining fish population in the Clark Hill Reservoir. Today I'm going to talk to you about why tuition at Aiken Technical College should be raised. I'm not going to give you guys that speech. You guys would start sending me nasty emails, okay? Today I'm going to try to persuade you as to why technical college and community colleges in the United States should have free tuition. That one you guys will get behind, okay? You should get your specific purpose and you should get it down to one complete sentence that doesn't have maybe one conjunction. Say and once, and that's it. And you need to build your speech on that specific purpose. A lot of times when I'm teaching public speaking and a student has a problem, I look at them and I say, hey, listen, I've got your outline here. I see your specific purpose, your statement of purpose, but it runs on. It's 7 lines long. It's a paragraph. What were you attempting to accomplish with this speech? And they come back to me and say, I don't really know. I wasn't really sure what I was trying to accomplish. And I'm going like, well, you know what? You gave a speech that clearly demonstrated you hadn't thought that through. Okay? So your specific purpose is incredibly important. You need to be able to, once you figure out the speaker, the audience, the occasion, and you come up with your general purpose to entertain, to inform, or to persuade, and then you come up with your specific purpose, you should have narrowed it down so that you can state in one simple sentence what you're trying to accomplish. So let's talk about how, once you get that purpose down, how you're going to organize your material. First, one way to do it is chronological. time order from beginning to end. Now, when I'm in my public speaking, well, when I'm in any class, which hasn't happened since March, when I'm in any class and I ask people, hey, listen, what's something you can teach in chronological, or a speech you can give in chronological order? Everybody says history. And I'm going, good, obviously. You go in chronological order from beginning to end. The Revolutionary War from 1775 to 1783. Okay? That's really straightforward. So what else can you do chronologically? In time and order from beginning to end. And they all look at me and go, so what about changing the tire on a car? Is the order you do things in important? And people go, well, no, I don't think it's that important. Well, they don't think it's important because there's no way to do it if you don't do it in order. But if the first thing I tell you to do when we're learning how to change the tires on a car is you pull all the lug nuts off the wheel, the flat wheel, and you haven't even jacked the car up yet, what's liable to happen? That wheel's liable to pop off and you're liable to have your car sitting on the ground. Okay? So any process that is important to do in order from beginning to end, step 1, step 2, step 3, so on and so forth to step 17. That's chronological development. Second thing I always say to them, and they look at me like, how many of y'all cook, bake? A recipe is done in chronological order. That's all a recipe is. What's the top thing on a recipe? You get your ingredients. First thing you do is you get your ingredients together. Your mise en place. Yes, I watch the cooking channel. Thank you very much. You get your ingredients together. First thing you do is you mix all the dry ingredients together. Second thing you do is you take your wet ingredients and you mix them together. Third thing you do is fourth thing you do, you mix the dry and the wet ingredients together by beating them in the blender until they have a light, frothy whip. Then you pour them into your cake pan and you stick it in the oven for 350 degrees for 35 minutes. You pull it out, you're doing things. If your first instruction was to pull the cake out and turn it over and let it cool, you're going to have a problem. Okay, so chronological is the first way. Second way is narrative order. Narrative order. Narrative order is real simple. It's rooted in something called narrative theory. And narrative theory says humans remember facts better when you tell a story, when you have characters, when you have plot, when you have conflict, when you have settings. Imagine the instructional films you used to watch in school. Okay, and the greatest ones are the ones that they always show from the 1950s were How to Date. Susie is going out on her first date. It's always Susie, and it's always focused on the girl because, I don't know, I guess how guys conducted themselves on dates wasn't important. Susie's going on a date. Bob will be over, and it walks you through the night and gives you a story about Bob and Susie's great date where they didn't touch each other, they barely spoke, and there was no physical contact. And for the 1950s, that's how dating was supposed to look, I guess. Okay? But they told a story. They invested in characters. And you see that all the time with instructional media. The Army is both the best and the worst about it. Some of the military training, for any veterans out there that are watching this tape, you guys know what I'm talking about. The military is the best in the world about it. Sailor Jim is about to go into town. And we know what Sailor Jim, we know if you hear that, you know what Sailor Jim's going to do. Okay? All right, so there's narrative order. There's topic order. Topic order divides a subject into its natural categories or divisions. If we wanted to talk about Aiken Technical College, We talk about general ed department. We talk about the nursing department. We talk about the industrial applications department. Okay, and we could break it down that way. If you want to talk about the federal government, you talk about executive, you talk about judicial, you talk about legislative. You break things down into their natural divisions and subdivisions. Okay. Then there is spatial. It's a preacher I used to occasionally listen to back when I was in college, and my girlfriend and I went to church with my girlfriend. Her pastor always said, "You are all spatial." This is not that kind of spatial. This is spatial, as in how things are organized in real space next to each other. Okay? Discussing population growth trends by continent is spatial. Discussing water pollution in the Mississippi River from north to south is spatial. Discussing Aiken Technical College by starting at the bottom of the hill at the 100 building and going all the way up the hill to the 1400 building, that's spatial organization. Because it's how things are organized in real space as they are juxtaposed and adjacent to each other. Okay, there is causal. And its close cousin, problem solution. Causal is where you identify a problem and you give us the cause of the problems. America's math test scores are failing because we do not attend school year-round like other countries do. And that's a true statement, by the way. Because other countries have what's called a year-round schedule. They don't spend any more time in class than our students do. But they don't get that big break in the summer where everybody gets to forget everything they learned. My kids were on a year-round schedule in the United Kingdom for 5 years, and they loved it. Okay? But the cause and effect there. The difference between causal and problem solution is with the causal speech, you don't have to fix the problem. You just have to identify it. Problem solution, problem is causing, you give the cause and the effect, and solution is you tell us how you're going to fix the problem. Okay? Now, those are the biggies. There are some other ones that I'm not going to get into. Okay? All right, so let's talk about the most basic kind of speaking. The most basic kind of speech you're going to give, speaking to inform. Speaking to inform. Your topic must engage and educate the audience. If it doesn't do both of those, you're wasting your time. If your topic is not relevant, the audience isn't going to care about, don't go. Don't do the speech. And if you're not going to give them information they didn't already know, if you're not going to educate them, don't do the speech. You're wasting their time. Okay? You should educate and engage. And how do you find out what will engage them and what will educate them? Audience analysis. Okay, thank you. All right? You can, this is, information is, you have information A up here in your noggin and you want it to be out there in their noggins. That's all I'm speaking to inform is. You do not attempt to persuade them. At all. Can you be an advocate who ultimately will try to persuade? Absolutely. And if you work in advocacy for a particular group, you need to be honest about that, or else you're not going to be credible. But do you need to get up there and say in every speech you give, be a persuasive speech? No, it doesn't. But you should avoid persuasion when you say you're going to be informative. And the reason is because if you say, hey, I'm here to talk to you about it and inform you about it, and then you're clearly advocating for a change of behavior or a change of attitude, you will put off your audience and you will not be effective. One of the things you need to do is you need to focus. Because, you know, it used to be, in reading some of the stuff that Thomas Jefferson wrote, that Ben Franklin wrote, it was thought at that time, 250 years ago, that a person could know everything. Well, let's be honest, they said a man, because they didn't bother educating. Women needed to be educated. But they thought a person could know everything there was to know. That a person could read every book, or at least read a book on every subject. Okay? Google the effects of sleep on high school students. You're going to find a couple of 100,000 sites that reference that. You can't know everything, so you can't present everything. So you have to focus down to the core information you think your audience needs. Okay? You have to be credible. Even if you're just trying to inform and not persuade, if you're not credible, if you don't come across as being credible, people aren't going to accept the information you're providing them, no matter how correct and true it is. And are you credible on every subject in the world? No, you're not. But you can certainly find sources that are credible and that the audience finds credible. Okay? State of South Carolina, do you want to talk about something? Quote Dabo Sweeney. Okay? Does he know everything? No, but people love him. Okay, well, half the state loves him. Okay? Let's talk about persuasive speaking. And I don't talk about speaking to entertain, because that is so far down the pike for most people on how to do that this is basic level stuff. Okay? All right, Aristotle said there were three, and again, I've said this many times. I ain't telling you anything new. Most of the stuff I teach in this class is 2,500 years old. Aristotle said there were three ways to persuade: pathos, logos, and ethos. And this still holds true today. Pathos is persuasion with emotion. Pathos is persuasion through emotion. Biggest example of pathos in this country in the last 10 years is that SPCA commercial, where you're sitting there and it's just, and Sarah McLachlan comes on and saying, "In the arms of a," and they show you pictures of sad dogs for a minute. That is nothing but pathos. Appealing to your emotions. We do that all the time, especially during political season. Last couple of years, we've heard nothing but, "You need to vote for Bob because he's a great American and we love America." And okay. All right. Fear, love, affection, patriotism are all emotions people will appeal to. Is that wrong? Not necessarily. Logos is an appeal to logic. Present evidence, present a logical case, and the people will agree with you. That's fairly simple. Ethos is based on your personal credibility. Because people believe you They will find you to be persuasive. Okay? Best example here in the CSRA. First time I saw this commercial, absolutely freaked me out. George Sink was a United States Marine. And then this old guy pops up. And every time, George Sink was United States Marine because he fought for our country. He will fight for you in court. George Sink was United States Marine. We hold veterans in high esteem in this country, for the most part. So George Sink, a lawyer, wanting everybody to know he was a United States Marine, he is trying to take that personal credibility associated with his military service and bring it into his job. Does he have the right to do that? Absolutely. It's a good technique, especially if you know for a fact all the other TV lawyers in town, of all the TV lawyers in town, you're the only one that's a veteran. It's a great technique because it builds on your personal credibility. It builds on your ethos. Okay? I found it kind of creepy because it sounded like they were in a cult. George Sink is, I mean, they repeat that. There's this group of like 9 people that repeat over and over with absolutely no emotion. George Sink was United States Marine. It just kind of freaked me out. Aristotle said for you to be effective, you need all 3. You need pathos, logos, and ethos. And Aristotle was absolutely correct. But Aristotle was also correct in saying if you don't have ethos, if you're not personally credible, if you can't persuade people based on their belief in you, the other 2 don't matter. Okay? I keep coming up with examples of people who no longer have ethos, and none of them, all of them are fairly controversial. So I'm not going to bring any of them up. But I just want you to think of somebody who's done something heinous, and then imagine them trying to sell you life insurance. Bernie Madoff, the guy who stole $68 billion from people. Imagine, he's got no personal credibility. He can make you cry. He can be logical as hell. But when he asks you for money at the end, you're going to go, hey, Bernie, thanks a lot, but I don't think that's going to happen. I love you, man. You're a good friend, but you're a thief. So you're not getting my money. Okay? It's a lot of other stuff. I'm just cutting out of this because we don't need it. So I'm flipping through. Yeah, we'll talk about this. Okay, there's 2 ways to persuade that I want, and I say this because, again, one of my roles here, one of my objectives here with interpersonal communication, SPC 209, is to build your ability, your credentials as critical consumers of communication. 2 things about persuasion. 1, offering a reward, and 2, persuading by fear. Okay? We'll talk to you about offering a reward. Here's the problem with offering a reward. Eventually, the reward, whoever you're persuading by giving them something, they're going to want something else. Or they're going to want more. Okay? I never offered my kids money for grades. They got privileges for grades. If they were on the AB honor roll, they got to stay up later on Friday and Saturday nights and enjoy, and they got to pick movies and stuff like that. But I never gave money for grades. Like I know some parents going like, hey, you got on the AB honor roll, there's $5. Well, sooner or later, that kid's going to go, $5? That was last year. I need 10. I'm working a lot harder. This is 5th grade. 4th grade was easy. 5th grade is hard. You're going to have to make it more worth my while, or I'm just not going to bother. And that goes for a lot of stuff. If you're going to give somebody a reward for doing something, if you're going to need them to do it repeatedly, you're going to have to keep offering them a bigger and bigger reward. Okay? So that's 1 on persuading through using your reward. 2, persuasion through arousing fear. Let's pretend this marker is a gun. It's not loaded, it's safe, you're fine. Okay? If I walk up to you and say, give me all your money or I'm going to shoot you in the head, and you give me your money, did I persuade you to give me your money? No, I coerced you. Coercion and persuasion are completely different things. Coercion does not give you a choice. Not doing something or dying is not a choice. Or doing something or dying is not a choice. That's coercion. Persuasion is a legitimate way to get people to change their mind or change their attitudes in their own best interest. Okay? But here's the thing. If I'm going to use fear to persuade you, eventually you will attenuate to that level of fear. Good example of this was President Trump's continuously harping on the threat of immigrants from our southern border coming into the United States. Okay? He started off with, that's a problem. 2015, 2016, it's a problem. He had to continuously ratchet it up until by 2018, in the off-year elections, he was using phrases like armed invasion. Okay? I mean, he was trying to make it an existential threat to the future of the United States. Here's the problem. Pretty soon, he had continued to ratchet the level of fear up to where people didn't buy it anymore. I mean, yeah, there was a hardcore group that didn't buy it. But in general terms, by 2018, after 3 years of being told that the nation was going to collapse if we didn't completely shut down the southern border because of invasions of illegal aliens, people just didn't buy it anymore. Okay? Does that mean you can never use fear to persuade? Absolutely not. It is a perfectly valid way to persuade and to educate. People are going, and a lot of you are going like, fear to educate? Yeah. Don't get in the van with the man. He's not good. He will kill you. It is an educational tool. It uses fear to persuade. If you cross the street without looking both ways, you're going to get run over and killed. And my favorite of all time, don't stick your arm out of the school bus window or you'll go by a telephone pole and it'll rip your arm clean off. That's using fear to persuade. And it's perfectly valid. But be aware that if you're going to try to persuade people and maintain a change of attitude and you're using fear over a long period of time, eventually that's going to move into coercion or the audience is going to attenuate to it and it's no longer going to be effective. Okay, where are we at? 48 minutes, that is a new record. Okay, again, I'm very passionate, and the reason I took this job because I wanted to spend a couple of years after, finishing up my government career. I wanted to spend a couple of years teaching public speaking, teaching interpersonal communication, but especially public speaking because I think it falls directly in line with Aiken Technical College's mission and goals that we discussed the first day of the semester to improve the work-life skills of the Aiken County population. Real simple. You want to know a reason why you should take public speaking, SPC 205 at Aiken Technical College, besides the good adjunct faculty and the okay full-time faculty guy? You'll make more money. It's been proven over and over again. People who are effective at public communication, people who can give a good speech, are going to make more money throughout their careers. It's just that simple. I don't know how to, I try to, we do a lot of, criticism. And by criticism, I don't mean, oh, he sucked. Okay, I mean, where we look critically at communication in the class. But the bottom line is, people who are effective public communicators, people who know how to give a good speech, okay, or an effective, it doesn't have to be great. You don't have to be FDR. You don't have to be Martin Luther King. If you can get up and give some organized thoughts, you're going to make more money in your lifetime. Okay? Bottom line. And I really appreciate the fact that Aiken Technical College requires a whole lot of diverse majors to take public speaking as part of their curriculum. Okay? And that is not trying to sell you guys. A lot of you guys I know, several of you in this class, I've already seen through SBC 205. Okay? But if you haven't taken it, I mean, the investment in tuition is going to be paid off many times over before your careers are over. Because being able to stand up and publicly communicate effectively will make you more marketable and mean you're more valuable to your organization. And when you're more valuable to your organization, and we talk about, one of the things we talk about in that class is a job interview is a public communication event. It's a public speech. It's a series of short public speeches. And we talk about that in class. Okay. I just wasted 3 minutes doing that. All right. That's chapter 9, 10, and I think chapter 11. We'll go, there'll be a discussion board posted in the next 24 hours after you see this. If it's not already up, we're going to move on, I think, to chapter 12 next. You'll see when the lecture pops up. Really, that's all I've got for you right now. As always, if you want to talk to me, shoot me an email. We can communicate via email if you're okay with that. We can do Zoom, or we can also do a face-to-face meeting. But again, you got to set up an appointment for a face-to-face meeting. With that being said, that is all I've got for today. So stay safe, take care of yourselves, and we will see you soon.